Today we're going to be creating some colored doodle art using a drawing and some totally free software online. Look at those frogs. Check out PIXLR.com. It's a software that I've used for years and years, and I really rely on it. And now they have so many editors that it's actually almost overwhelming. You can see they've got PIXLR Editor, PIXLR Pro, PIXLR Express. I like PIXLR Express a lot because you can do collages. But PIXLR Editor is something similar to Photoshop for you Photoshop users out there. And PIXLR Pro is sort of an extended version of that you can pay like $5 a month for, and it gives you a bunch of templates or a bunch of logos and stock images. So if that's worth it to you, dive in. But today we're going to be using the totally free PIXLR editor, and we're just going to start by opening our image, which is a hand drawing that I did. And this is just sort of inspired by nature, and I really wanted to make an echo shirt. Top to bottom is about the universe, so let's start looking at the galaxy here. There's our little spiral galaxy, and it's all about choosing our brush size. This file actually has two layers. The top layer is a solid layer in case I want to draw on top of the drawing, and the bottom layer that I'm clicked on now is actually going under the drawing. So it's actually not that complicated, but sometimes I want to either like erase a line or draw on top of a line, like with this red rose. It took a little bit more work on top of the drawing to get that right. So what are we going to look at now? There's the color wheel and some sunflowers. Let's pick our colors, pick our brush size, and keep on moving. That's the thing, it's all about keeping the pace. So with the flowers, you can make a decision as you go. I was not sure about this big flower, so I thought, well, I'll just try something kind of fuchsia and mix it with the blue and do like a softer effect with the brush. So we have a little more of an airbrush effect on some of the flowers and a little more solid effect on the other flowers. This is the keystone in the center of the piece, and I thought, well, let's really spend some time on it. Let's give it a few freckles and speckles and just keep working on the sunflowers. You'll see these sunflowers are popping up and daisies everywhere. We're just going to give them a lot of bright colors here. So they say stay within the lines. That's what I'm trying to do here. Okay, now on these leaves you can see I'm actually drawing on top because I wasn't happy with just having them as black solids. Those lines are going to be really thin around, but I like the effect. It's going to stay that way. Oh, there's our butterfly. Okay, let's give it like some multicolor effects. Just keep changing the color and keep putting some dots on there. Because I'm moving here and fast forward, it doesn't always tell you or show you the pop-up there for the colors, so you just have to assume I'm changing colors there really fast. And sometimes it'll catch you. Okay, let's zoom out here. You can see the whole drawing and the layers there. Okay, let's just run really fast. Sometimes it helps to work far away, sometimes it helps to work close up. There we go. Let's pop off all the colors so you can see what we've done so far. What's next? What's next? Why not a blue or lavender type flower? Don't know what kind of flower that is, but it doesn't really matter. Well, I think this big one on the right is definitely a sunflower. I think there's no question about it. I don't know if that's accurate to the one we find, but that's the sunflower in my mind, so why not? And I think instead of giving it a really deep green, I'd rather just give it more of a pastel color green. See those little houses? The houses are key. Even though they're small and far away, you'll see in the total landscape they're sort of always there on the sides, and we're creating a little bit of a fantasy village here in which all of nature works together. So you can see all the creatures that we can possibly think of put in this drawing. It's coming along really nicely, and we've dotted green on the trees. Look at that crow sitting there. Is that a crow or a duck? And if you look really closely at the bottom of the tree, you might see a rabbit or two, one black and one white. Okay, so in this case I'm working on the top layer and giving a little bit of transparency on the brush because I just like the effect of bringing through some of the drawing, but not all of it. And I really like that effect the way it turned out actually on the bark. Oh, there's a rope swing and a birdhouse. And there's some kind of owl or hawk or something there sitting on the branches. If you look into this drawing, there's tons of detail, and that's the fun of the shirt. By the way, we're doing this for a t-shirt for fundraising, and that's how this whole thing got started, was the idea of doing a sort of a coloring book piece, using it to help raise funds for some of our social positive programs that we're doing. We're doing right now an education project for Africa. A lot of our work is based around helping developing nations. So this is our sort of our happy village that we're creating as a meditation to bring about some positive change in some villages in the developing world. So there's a really positive underpinning to this piece of artwork. Or you could just say it's a bunch of doodles on a piece of paper. But either way, we are moving forward. Look at this, the colors are coming together piece by piece, and I like sort of the way that the clouds turned out there with a sort of softer blue. Just a little bit of blue is all it took to get those clouds going, and I'm going to use the same effect on most of the insect wings. To me are see-through, and we can just use a little bit of soft color on all these animals here. Okay, this is our apple basket. It doesn't look much like an apple basket just yet, but it will at the end, trust me. So we're going to fill in a little bit of half opacity color there. There we go. Let's dot this with some red apples. Why not throw in some red flowers behind it? Just kind of keep that area, lots of little dots of red. Okay, it's always what's next, what's next? How about these rocks? Let's fill in some gray. Just get the Zen rocks, I call those, finished out. And what about the turtles and frogs? They're starting to turn green. That's a turtle. Okay, and we're using a lot of the same green here. And what I do is I pick the color that I like and I start working with it, and then if I need it I can just pick it up with that eyedropper tool. And once again, this software is pretty fantastic. I find that it's actually a really stable program that is pushed through online, and you know, it compares actually. Long-time Photoshop user, I've spent umpteen dollars on Photoshop licenses in the past, and it's just refreshing to know that there's an option out here for people that are working in non-profit, or you're in a startup business and you're just getting started, or you're actually a young person and you want to just use something for free and you want to be able to do some coloring. This is the place. So an indirect or direct endorsement for PIXLR.com. Big fan of their work, and I really do like all the different editors, and each one has something different to offer. This one is sort of the one that I find myself going to do finished art, but Pixel Express is great because you can do some really fast effects. So for you Instagrammers out there, Pixel Express is the way to go. But on this kind of piece, I'm going to open up their Pixlr editor. I do like the new editor that they made, Pixlr X, but this is the one I just keep going back to because it's sort of familiar and has an old school layout with the toolbox on the left. So let's not digress too much, and let's realize that we have to make the frog's eyes right here. Yeah, give him a little bit, few wrinkles there, maybe some warts. What frog would be complete without some wrinkles and some warts and a funny little expression on his face and a wide smile? And we got our little hoppy frogs that are at the very bottom. And if you just keep looking, you're going to see all kinds of creatures. Okay, why don't we put some soil in here, give you a sense of grounding. And and surround these earthworms with some nice fresh soil. And we have some roots here, and I'm not sure if those are the roots of the mushroom, which would be called mycelium, or if that is just cracks in the soil, or maybe those are roots of the tree trunk. But the idea is just to get you thinking about roots and root structure on that part of the drawing without getting too technical. The idea is we just are trying to have some fun with this drawing. Okay, now if you look really closely, the turtle to the right has started to develop more than the others, and there's a little red headband or eye band on there. Don't know where that is inspired from. Let's just put some dirt here on the path to the little houses and the little villages. So we have a sense of movement there, and yes, this tree deserves some green, and the other ones too, otherwise it just looks like little blotches there. I think this piece really does need color because some of the details will get lost otherwise. So I even considered just leaving it black and white and printing it in one color on some t-shirts, but I decided to give it the full color workup. Now this color was actually really important to me because this to me is sort of an African savanna color where you get really like a burnt umber or burnt yellow kind of effect that you would get with savanna grass, and you just have a little touch of green in the yellow and a little touch of brown in the yellow, and that gives it sort of a mature savanna grass feel, and that was something I thought would actually tie the whole piece together in the middle, and all the other colors can bounce off of it. What do we have here? Is this really tall baby's breath, or maybe it's cotton, some organic cotton fields that are growing there. Notice every bee gets its yellow and black stripes. I hope you like spiders because there's a few hanging around. And I wasn't really sure how to deal with the spider's web on this, so what we tried to do is work around it, and you'll see in the end that I just kind of skip it for now. I want to give the edges a little less sort of obvious paintbrush effect, so I just kind of bring in a smaller brush and cut the edges a little bit, and you'll see how that works out in the end just very well. Actually just gives it sort of a random edge. One of the things that I decided to do is create another layer. The top layer, we've gone ahead and labeled it as the solid layer, and the next one is the darkened layer. And these love to jump around for some reason on PIXLR, but you kind of have to put them back in place. When you touch a layer, sometimes it jumps. I created this specific layer for the big areas, which would be the grass, the ground, the sky. And that way, in case I wanted to adjust the opacity or make the whole thing sort of a lighter pastel, in the end I could do it. So the reason for that third layer is just the idea that the big regions might be very light pastel, because in the end this is going to be a shirt for women and for children, and I want a very light feel, kind of an airy feel to it, and a fun feel for sure. Very light artwork here. So you can see that we're working on top of the background, and that is our guide. Now we have some rainbow trout in the river there, and I don't know where the river source is, but it's somewhere inland. So what do we have? What are we missing? How about we finally bring ourselves to work on the sky? That sounds good. So we're just gonna go over this with some airbrush type effects, and I like it when there's a slight crossover with the opacity down low. And, you know, I'll work on an opaque brush that's, in this case, 30%, or just about 30%. And so when there's a crossover, it gives it a very like authentic sort of airbrush feel that you might get with an airbrush t-shirt. So that was the idea, is that it doesn't have to be just a perfect block of sky. In fact, that would be just boring. So a little bit of color variation as we move around all of the finished flowers. Look at that. Flower patch is really coming along. Who's that man standing on top of the house? He looks happy. Okay, there's the bee. Okay, what do we have here in the sky? We have the moon, the sun, the stars. And if you look closely, there's even a few planets up there. And we've got to figure out how to give these stars some color besides the big one. Oh, there's Saturn. There's Jupiter. There's some big stars. Maybe that's Orion. I don't know if that's the Milky Way galaxy. Probably an arm of the Milky Way galaxy there. And no sky is complete without a few birds flapping around. All starts to come together. Let's make the top, for some reason I feel like making it a little more blue as we get up towards the heavens. Give it a little tiny bit darker sky so that we can pop the yellow stars out at the end, and you'll see how we do that. It's really coming along. Well, just a few minutes left on the drawing here. And I like this part a lot because you can really see that it's coming together. Really helps just to dance in and out on the zoom. And the zoom in the upper right hand corner is super easy, along with the navigator. So for those of you familiar with the Photoshop type tools, we have brushes, and I tend to just rely on the brushes and the eraser for this type of project. Lots of happy hearts all around. So the idea here is you could make a game to count how many animals and creatures there are. How many birds? How many insects? I think that spider's going to drop down on that bird right below it. You see which one I'm talking about there on the upper left. Okay, I just felt like these leaves needed to be somehow a little more random instead of just dotted. So we're going to cut a lot of these circular paint pieces into half. And that will help us give it a little more random feel there. Wow, we're really honing in on the details. You can see that we've got a little bit of transparency for each of the insect's wings. This is really all about detail. Okay, the main thing that we did here is we created a special brush. Why not? Let's create one in the star pattern and see if we can work on top of these hand-drawn stars and actually pop out some yellow stars. I'm just moving really fast here. Some of them can remain just little dots in the sky, why not? Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Look at that little sun. It's funny to me that in the drawing, the sun ended up the same size as the moon, as the planets. Everything's sort of equal there in the sky. Everything important, equally important, like we are all equally important. Why not pull out some green out of that flower? And just a few detail strokes here for the savanna grass. And I want to pull out some green here next to the river because that's exactly what we would have, is some green growth down by the river. And this part's a little bit challenging, working with some transparencies there, but it's starting to work out. Let's just pop around, zoom around. So it looks like everything's coming together. nice backgrounds with the soil, the grass, the sky. Just going to do some final touching up on those backgrounds by creating a star brush that we're going to use as kind of a sponge. And you'll see how we do that is by creating this sponge layer and just putting these stars around. Randomizes the backgrounds a little bit so they don't look so solid, and especially the edges, it's important. You'll see later that we want those randomized edges, especially for the t-shirt. We just want it to sort of fade out like a natural piece of artwork. And the way that we do that is we have blurred out that sponge layer and just drop the opacity way down. It just adds a little bit of variety there. So here we go. Lots of flowers, bright beautiful sky, hearts and flowers. There we go. Little creatures. A gecko, or is that a lizard? And our happy smiling frog, our happy little worms. Lots of stars in the sky, and the sun. Just a bouquet of wonderfulness. Look at that river full of fish. I don't think we're going to catch those. I think we're going to let them go out to sea. So let's just zoom out here on the final piece. See how we did. It seems like the houses are the right color, flowers are the right color, everything seems to be pretty balanced. And that's our finished piece of doodle art, and just putting the logo on the bottom. We just did a specialized logo, which we did also in the editor program, creating a nice texture on the Attarum wording. So take a look at the Attarum shop and you will see that the design is already there. If you like the design, feel free to order it. It's available in Europe, it's available in the United States, and it's a great shirt if you want to work in the garden or take your kid out for a stroll. We have lots of children's sizes, including toddler and baby, and lots of color varieties. More colors on the children than the adults, but also the branding there on the back. And by buying a t-shirt, you are supporting a really big cause, which is education, housing, and food growth for developing countries, supporting of orphanages and marginalized children, and that's what Attarum is all about. Please take a moment and like and subscribe for more positive content in the future, and thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.